Church After Hours. This is your man, Brother Diallo. The brothers aren't here with me this week, but this is a serious conversation that myself and the rest of the brothers have been wanting to have all season long. And I found the right person to have that conversation with. We're going to be discussing what's going on over in the Congo. And this brother has a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information that he's going to share with us as it pertains to what's going on with our brothers and sisters in the Congo. But before we get into tonight's conversation, Brother Maurice, man, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the people, man, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, sure. My name is Maurice Carney. I'm one of the co-founders of Friends of the Congo, organization, the Pan-African organization. Uh, that's the tradition, history that I come from, a Pan-African tradition.
Right.
Having worked in different parts of the continent, organizing uh, uh, abroad, in collaboration with our brothers and sisters back home, uh, and in the formation of Friends of the Congo, we brought together folks from Guyana, from the Cameroon, of course, the Congo itself,
Right.
United States, Jamaica, all in an effort to uh, mobilize our Africans abroad
Mm.
around a space and an issue that has long been held up by the best that our tradition has produced.
Hmm.
A space has long been held up as central to the Pan African project, central to not only liberation of Africans on the continent, but the liberation of Africans worldwide. So that's the spirit and philosophy that we embrace at Friends of the Congo, and why we focus to the extent that we do on the literally and figuratively the heart of the African continent.
Absolutely. And as we continue in tonight's conversation, I want you to continue to shout out Friends of the Congo. If you guys have a website, if you have a PayPal or Zelle, anything that we can help and support the listeners of this program can support you, good brothers and sisters, for the work that you're doing. Please continue to shout that out, and we'll put that up on the screen.
Yeah,
Uh,
just
uh,
Free Congo. Go to freecongo.org, and that's the gateway to all of what you just mentioned.
freecongo.org. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this robust conversation, man.
Hmm.
And again, we're going to be talking about some of the things that's taking place on the continent in Congo in particular. For a
Hmm.
person that doesn't know anything about what's going on in the Congo, hasn't heard of coltan or cobalt or any of these type of things that we know is associated when we hear Congo, break it down for them, man. What's going on in the Congo right now, and why is it important for all of our brothers and sisters, not only here in America but abroad, to have an idea of what's going on?
Yeah, Congo is front and center in people's consciousness today, but it's been central to the 500-year Mahafa that we've experienced as
Mm,
African peoples. Emory University, they have what they call a slavery database, and a website that goes with it, Slave Voyages, slavevoyages.org. And the data that they gather along with UNESCO's data, they say almost half of the Africans that were trafficked from the continent came out of the Congo region, in the
wow.
Central African region. The those that were trafficked to the Americas, 4 out of 10 Africans came from the Congo region. That's why if you read scholars like Dr. Sheila Walker, where she talks about Congo, where the presence of Africans in the Americas often collapsed into Congo. They
Right.
refer to it Congo, irrespective of where you are. So if you want to fully understand our journey as a people, you really have to start in the heart of the African continent. At least this isn't, in recent history.
Right.
And even with hundreds of years of enslavement from the early 1500s right up to the 1800s, we see where the main form of extraction on the part of Europeans were African bodies, right?
Mm,
And we see the transition after hundreds of years to a focus on the resources, which most notably known in terms of European encroachment, occurred at the Berlin Conference,
Right.
1884, 1885.
Yep.
That conference was also called the Congo Conference. And here again, we saw Congo loom large to the point where it wasn't even colonized, it wasn't even owned by a state. During coming out of the Berlin Conference, it was given to King Leopold II as his own personal property, private property, on the condition that it remained a free state, free commerce, free movement. That's why they call it the Congo Free State. And during that period, he extracted rubber.
Mm,
And again, the extractive process ultimately fed and fueled the advancement or the industrialization of the West. The extraction of our bodies for hundreds of years was central to the development and advancement of capitalism.
that's
You
right.
just consult Eric Williams' Capitalism and Slavery and get a good sense of that. Even Harvard professor Sven Beckett, he's got what he called Empire of Cotton or Cotton Empire, where
Yes.
they talk
Yes.
about the centrality of African bodies, African brawn, and African minds to the advancement of capitalism. So, by the same token, to advance industrialization and technology, that extractive process in the 1800s, late 1800s, right through to the early 1900s, Congo was front and center, where half of the population perished as the king extracted rubber and ivory over a 23-year period, which is equivalent of about an estimated 10 million people,
Mm,
Congolese, having perished. So we see, fast forward to today, where the United Nations says the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II has occurred in the Congo. 1996 to the present, an estimated 6 million people have perished, half of them children under the age of 5, as a result, in part, for the scramble for the resources in the Congo. And during this 21st century technology advances, we see minerals like coltan. It's a colloquial term for columbite tantalite,
hmm
which is a key mineral that has qualities. It retains heat really well. It's retains electric charge really well. It's heat resistant, and it is vital to the functioning of our devices, our cell phones,
Right.
laptops,
Laptops. Yep.
video games that our children play. You know, the Nintendo Wii, all those Sony PlayStation, all that. So here we see again where we're talking about the greatest humanitarian crisis at the dawn of the 21st century, and Congo again is front and center. So the country itself, that space in the heart of the African continent, a space that is the size of Western Europe, and some people say the richest piece of real estate on the planet, with some
Absolutely.
estimated $24 trillion worth of natural wealth there. It has been coveted historically and contemporarily by everyone. Like everyone wants a piece of the Congo,
That's right.
and the pursuit on the part of Congolese of controlling that wealth has put them in the wealth that's there in the heart of the continent, controlling that strategic location in the heart of the continent, put them in the crosshairs of the colonialists and the imperialists, to the point where the United States launched its largest covert action in the world at the time in the 1960s to get rid of Congo's first democratically elected prime minister and Patrice Lumumba,
My brother
to
Patrice
overthrow him.
Lumumba. God rest the dead, the mighty
Yeah,
ancestor.
to overthrow him and ultimately assassinate him. And what we see today is a product of that the U.S.'s role in destroying the aspirations and the will of the Congolese people,
That's right.
and then imposing their own will over the Congolese people by installing a dictatorship. So since the early 60s, where the United States installed and maintained a dictatorship, where the United States determined who would lead the country, it has led to the conflict that we see today, a conflict that's waged a war, a quarter century war of aggression and plunder, that's waged against the Congolese people by U.S. allies,
Mm,
Rwanda, led by Paul Kagame, and Uganda, led by Yoweri Museveni. And the ongoing conflict we see today is a result of those wars of aggression and plunder, that was initiated in 1996, and a second one in 1998. Peace occurred in 2002, but Rwanda and Uganda want to maintain control and access to those resources in the
Those
east of the
mineral, yeah.
Congo. So they set up proxy groups. The latest one is M23 to destabilize the region so that they can continue to get access to Congo's riches. So really, that's the structural nature of the conflict, and the United States government and its foreign policy is fundamental to the crisis that we see in the Congo today.
Right. So that was a very robust answer, and it was thorough. It was on point. You gave us a history lesson for those that didn't know any of this information that he was sharing. And I'm glad you brought up our dear ancestor, brother Patrice Lumumba, who was a hero to us all, especially being here, growing up in the States and learning about him. Because we learned about Malcolm and Mr. Garvey and Dr.
Hmm.
King, Mega Evers. But when I started to, go out on my own and start to do my own research and learning about brothers like him and Kwame Nkrumah and all these other, just giants, man, it opened my eyes up to a bigger issue that was taking place for many, many of years of how, like you said, the U.S. would go in and destabilize these countries doing the things that they do. Let's talk about Patrice Lumumba for a minute.
Hmm.
I know this answer, but I want you to answer it and give some historical context to the people that may not know. Why was it necessary for the United States government and along with its allies, because they didn't act alone, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Why was it important for them to basically take that brother out? Because we seen it happen to Martin, we seen it happen to Malcolm, we seen
Hmm.
what happened to Garvey before all of them when they
Yeah.
deported him back to Jamaica.
Hmm.
Why was it important for them to get our dear brother, the ancestor Patrice Lumumba, out of there?
Sure, sure. Well, actually, the U.S. government tells us,
Yeah,
the chief of station for the CIA in the Congo is responsible for the overthrow of Lumumba and ultimate assassination. His name is Larry Deflin. He wrote a book of that nature, the same title, Chief of Station Congo. He said we had to get rid of Lumumba. If we didn't get rid of Lumumba, not only would we have lost Congo, we would have lost all of Africa. So they tell us why they got rid of him. And the reason why Devlin said that can be found in Malcolm. Now, if you study Malcolm, you can't study Malcolm without knowing about
you got to.
Patrice Lumumba.
That's
If you
right.
study Malcolm, you'll know Patrice Lumumba, you'll know the Congo. Uh, you also mentioned Medgar Evers. If you know Medgar Evers, you'll know Patrice. They share the same birthday and birth year. Both of them were
Yep.
born on July 2nd, 1925. And both of them, Malcolm, Medgar, they're victims of the same system.
Right.
Malcolm, in forming the Organization of Afro-American Unity, in some of the early meetings, he would show films on the Congo and talk about the Congo. And people were like, some of the people in the audience were like, man, why are we dealing with the Congo?
Right.
We
Right.
catching hell right here in
Right.
Harlem. Right?
Right.
Why are we all focused on the Congo? And Malcolm, responded in Malcolm style to one of the brothers. He said, like, my brother was talking out of the side of his mouth about the Congo. He said, well, uh, as long as you think you got to get Mississippi straight before you get the Congo straight, you'll never get Mississippi straight.
That's right.
So
That's
what
right.
Malcolm is saying is that we're connected. We're
All
uh,
connected.
connected by culture, connected by tradition, but also connected in terms of the enemies that are
That's
against
right.
us.
That's right.
The enemies of white that
That's the
perfect.
biggest connection. The
Yes, that's
perpetrators of racism and white
white
supremacy.
supremacy. Absolutely. So Malcolm told us why they killed Patrice. He said he was the greatest African to ever walk the continent. He said they couldn't reach him.
Mm.
They couldn't buy him out. They couldn't buy him off. He was so much in love with his people and with Congo and Africa that there wasn't any way, they didn't have any choice but to get rid of him,
That's right.
because that love for his people, that love for liberation, demanded that he act in the interest of Congo, act in the interest of Africa. And acting in the interest of Congo and Africa means that you want to control the affairs of the Congo. You want to control the wealth. You want to control the land. You want to
Mm-hmm.
control the resources, not only for the benefit of Congo because it's so spectacularly wealthy, but for the benefit of Africa.
That's
So they
right.
had to get rid of him. Can you imagine? He was like, can you imagine the heart of the African continent being controlled by a Lumumba? That it wouldn't only mean trouble for folks trying to control access to Congo, but especially at the time, the southern African countries that were under settler colonialism.
Right.
Angola wouldn't have, Portuguese wouldn't have lasted as long as they did in Angola.
Right.
You know, the British and Cecil Rhodes and all of those folks. And when we talk about Zimbabwe, they got their independence. I think it's 1980. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't have lasted all of that. So if you have a strong and Nkrumah recognized that, right?
Yes.
In
Yes, he
his
did.
challenge of the Congo, he laid out how central Congo was to a free and liberated Africa. Ahmed Sekou Touré of Guinea, he recognized that. That's why
Hmm.
he dispatched Pan Africanists like Andre Blouin, to go work with Lumumba. She had worked with Sekou Touré in '58 when they confronted de Gaulle and voted no to being a part of France. So that experience that she had, that organizing that she had done, she brought all of that to bear on the Congo at the behest of Sekou Touré. So the Pan Africanists coming out of the All African People's Conference of 1958 recognized the centrality and acknowledged the centrality of Congo to the future of Africa. And they rallied around Lumumba. All right. That's why Fanon, in his tour, The African World Revolution, he said, the fate of all of us is at stake in the Congo.
Mm.
Right. And I'm not just saying that to recite historical facts. I'm saying it
Right.
because it's relevant for us today.
Right.
The Pan-African tradition rallies around the Congo. Nkrumah, Touré, Blouin, Fanon. Fast forward to today, some people leaders in Africa claim they're Pan-Africanists, but they're ravaging the Congo.
Yeah. It's
So,
awful.
so is that consistent with Nkrumah? Did Nkrumah ravage the Congo?
No, that's what we
Did
call
Touré
double talk,
ravage the
brother.
Congo?
They double talking. Yep.
Right. So it's clear for us to understand that if you're going to claim Pan Africanism today, you better be supporting the Congo like the Pan Africanists did yesterday.
That's right.
And if you're supporting those folks who claim they're Pan Africanists and they're ravaging the Congo, well, you're supporting false gods, so to speak,
Yeah. Yeah.
a false Pan Africanist, right?
Yep. Yep.
So that the centrality of Congo to the future of the African continent is recognized both by our foes,
Hmm.
CIA, U.S. government, and by our friends, the Nkrumahs and the Tourés and the Fanons. Uh,
Absolutely.
so that's when we talk about the Malcolm X's and the Medgars, we have to make that connection. And it's not by
Absolutely.
accident that they fell victim by the same system, the domestic arm
That's right.
of the security apparatus, COINTELPRO,
Of
counterintelligence
the
program.
Yep.
They got rid of King, they got
Yep.
rid of Malcolm, they got rid of
Megger.
Medgar, they
Yep.
dismantled the Panthers.
Yeah.
That's the domestic
They
arm.
deported Marcus Garvey before all of them. So
And
it's
before Marx up for all of them.
and one of J. Edgar Hoover's, who was the head of the COINTELPRO, one of his first missions was to get Garvey out of the United States. Like, he was around that long in the 1920s. So everything you're saying is 1,000% correct.
Yeah, we'll go at the core, they're anti-African, whether it's the African at home or the African abroad. And the quicker
That's
we
right.
realize that,
That's right.
the uh, further ahead we'll be in
That's right.
achieving ultimate liberation.
Yeah, and I always tell this story. All my friends and relatives probably have heard this story before. When I had hair, about 15 years ago, I still can grow a little bit, but that's another story for another day. But I had a haircut, with my part on the side, and I worked in corporate America, man. And this young Jewish cat came up to me one day while I was walking through the halls, headed to lunch, and he was like, man, I just realized who you look like." And I said,
Hmm.
who do I look like? He said, man, you look like the dear brother, Patrice Lumumba. And I was like, Patrice Lumumba, first off, how do you even know who this is? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
it just threw me for a loop. One day he even knew who he was. And when he said that, I was like, I kind of do favor him. Because I had kind of had those same glasses that he wore, the ones
Oh,
that
right, right,
him and
right.
Malcolm wore. So I'll have Kurt put a picture in to show. But that day it raised my level of awareness. It's like this is unreal. This young Jewish cat in corporate America who probably could care less about these things that we're dealing with. He knows who Patrice Lumumba is, but a lot of our brothers and sisters that come from our communities, look like you and
Mhm,
I, have no
mhm.
idea who this giant of a brother is. Like
Yeah.
that day changed my life in a way that most people will never understand. It's just
Mm,
like we got work to do. We got work to do.
yeah, absolutely.
If people who look nothing like him, who really share no interest, of our brother, know who he is, it's like how do we not know who he is?
Yeah.
I just wanted to share
And
that because
that's
it always
yeah,
cracks
no,
me.
that's
But
a
go ahead. I'm sorry.
relevant, important, and relevant story. That's why we have what we call Lumumba Day, and people
Mm,
can check it out, lumumbaday.org,
yeah.
where you can go and be a part of Lumumba Day, where you can participate every January 17th in Lumumba Day, and uh, where we uh, uplift Lumumba, but not only Lumumba, we uplift Maurice and Polo, we
Yes.
uplift Joseph Okito. They were assassinated with Lumumba
That's right.
uh,
That's right.
as
Together.
well. And
Yep.
so we encourage people to get resolutions in their cities about Lumumba, to study
Absolutely.
Lumumba, to support the youth in the Congo who are carrying on his tradition and his teachings and his ideas. Just the very fact of our uttering Lumumba's name is really a form of resistance, because when Lumumba was assassinated by a coterie of characters, the Belgians and the U.S. and sycophants in the Congo, they chopped up his body into small pieces and dumped it
Yes.
into acid. They wanted to
Yep.
erase him from our consciousness, from our memory.
Yeah.
So the fact that we are bringing him up today, over 60 years after he was assassinated, is a form of resistance, and it's saying to the colonizer, saying to the imperialist, you cannot kill our heroes. You
Right.
cannot erase them from our memory. And
Right.
we're not only we're going to uplift them, but we're going to carry on the ideas that you killed them for.
Right. And
You
like
know,
like like our revolutionary brother from my hometown of Chicago, Illinois, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the
in the
revolution. You know what I
revolution.
mean? So
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
you're absolutely correct in that, man. And I always and when I read that about him, what and how they did him, it was the
Mm.
same thing they was doing to our brothers and sisters over here. When you look at chattel slavery, when they would kill them and cut them up and save different body parts as if it was memorabilia, like
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people were sick, man, and it's just it's insane. But I want to
Yeah.
kind of fast forward a little bit to 2024, man. And
Sure.
again, go to Friends of the Congo, Friends of the Congo, support Brother Maurice and the brothers and sisters on the ground that's doing this work for our brothers and sisters in the Congo. So go to Free Congo, Friends of the Congo, excuse me. When we
Yeah.
talk
Both of them.
about yeah, when we talk about what's going on in the Congo today, you said since the 1990s there have been 6 million deaths, man. When we
Yeah.
hear about the young people, and as well as I'm hearing there's elders as well mining for coltan and cobalt,
Mm.
talk about what it looks like in the Congo today, and what's going on with our brothers and sisters that are mining coltan and cobalt. From what I'm hearing, sun up to
Sure.
sundown,
Yeah.
horrible conditions. Some of them, perishing, doing this hard, laborious work all day long. Talk to us about what it looks like on a daily basis for our brothers and sisters as we speak today in 2024, and what we can do to try to be of assistance.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And what's going on depends on where you are in the country.
Okay.
I'm globally, right? Globally, we have a situation where uh, nearly 7 million Congolese have been internally displaced.
Uh huh.
Right? A situation where 25 million, a quarter of the 100 million people in need of emergency assistance. That's globally, right, across the Congo.
Mm,
In the east of the Congo, in the so-called Kivu, in the Kivus, they're in the midst of a conflict, an ongoing conflict that's being driven by U.S. allies, Rwanda, for the most part, and to some extent, Uganda. So the folks in the east, which is mineral rich, they have coltan, they have diamonds, they have tin, gold, a range of minerals in the east
right.
that are crucial. And then you have the southeast, what they call the Old Katanga province, where you have the uranium. People may be familiar with it, with that part of the Congo. If anybody watched the movie Manhattan Project, was it Manhattan Project or Manhattan is the title of the movie? But in any case, they talk about the Manhattan Project and how the United States developed the atomic weapons. And it was the Congo that provided and supplied the overwhelming majority of the uranium that would be used for developing the
Mm,
atomic weapons. So it's that part of the Congo where the uranium uh, came from for the United States to develop its atomic weapons, and it's rich in minerals that are radioactive,
mm,
and copper, nickel, cobalt are such minerals that are dug up and mined in the old Katanga province. In fact, the cobalt itself is a byproduct of mining copper and nickel, right?
mm,
And these minerals are not only precious, uh, they're also strategic and critical,
mm.
especially as we move into what they call the green energy transition or the clean energy transition. So, cobalt, for example, where Congo produces 70% of the world's cobalt.
Wow.
And if you add up all the countries in the world that produce cobalt, they don't equal what Congo produces. And
Mm,
cobalt is a central ingredient in rechargeable batteries, the batteries
right.
for our cell phones or laptops or iPads, and of course the electric vehicle, the Teslas and all the others that
Right.
are coming online. So it's a strategic mineral that's mined in the southern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And there are two forms of mining. One is industrial or
Mhm.
mechanized, and the other is artisanal, done by hand, rudimentary tools. And about 20% of the cobalt coming out of the Congo is mined artisanally. Interestingly enough, if you were to take the cobalt that's mined artisanally by small scale miners, they'd be the second largest producers of cobalt in the world.
Mm,
The artisanal miners produce more cobalt than any other country around the world.
wow.
So it's that central critical mineral to the green energy transition. Now, it's also part of a geostrategic battle between China and the United States as
Mm,
well. China has what they call the Belt and Road Initiative. They have control about 60% of the mines in the Congo. As many of us know, China has been advancing on the African continent
absolutely.
economically to the point where the United States and Europe are not able to compete. The United States tried to compete by initiating AFRICOM in 2008, which is they basically try to compete with their military and the gun. But now the United States has had to step its game up a little bit in terms of the competition. So they have what they call the Global Partnership for Infrastructure and Investment, and that's the United States response to the China's Belt and Road Initiative. And this is playing out in the Congo, where the United States, through the Global Partnership for Infrastructure and Investment, resuscitated what they call the Lobito Corridor. It's a rail line that runs from the heart of the Congo mining region in a place called Kolwezi, right
Mm,
through to Angola to the Lobito port, so that they can get the copper out, get other critical minerals out quicker, at less cost, more efficient. And they work with a multinational corporation in the Congo called Ivanhoe Mines in order to do that. So there's a geostrategic battle going on, and the thing about it is, it's really interesting, is that when people frame this geostrategic battle, they're like, "Oh, are you on the side of the Chinese, or are you on the side of the Americans or whatever?" Really, we got to be on the side of the Africans. Like
that's right. That's
that's
right.
really what matters, because you look in the Congo, there's this mine called Tenke Fungurume. Used to be owned by an American company, Freeport McMoran, out of there in Arizona. John McCain was alive, and uh, they ran into some debt, so they sold the mine. The mine didn't go back to the Congolese, right? Mine went to the Chinese, China molybdenum. They bought it for $2.5 billion.
Mm,
So whether it was the Americans or the Chinese, The Congolese weren't the primary beneficiary. They don't have control of the mines. They don't have control of the land. They're not benefiting from that wealth. In fact, uh, 70 million of Congo's 100 million inhabitants live on less than $2.15 a day in extreme poverty,
Mm.
right? And at the same time, you have this Israeli guy by the name of Dan Gertler, who has a relationship with a mining company in the Congo, and his business practices are so off the charts that even the Treasury Department sanctioned him. I hear President Biden is trying to get him off the list right now, but he's on the U.S. sanctions list. But yet he's still getting royalties to the tune of $200,000 a day. One man, Israeli, Dan Gertler, repatriates his wealth to Israel to build settlements on the West Bank. $200,000 a day. 70 million Congolese, $2.15 a day.
215 a day.
So we're
Yeah.
talking about a space that is being continues to be plundered, and that's the design of the Congo. When it was designed by Europeans in 1885 Berlin Conference, they designed it for plunder, as I stated. And that design, that framework remains intact to this day. And when we talk about a free Congo, that's what we're talking about, to free Congo from that design, from that extractive system, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's the Americans, whether it's the Turks, whether it's the Russians, whoever is coming in. We want Congo's wealth, Africa's wealth, to be controlled by Africans.
As it
That's got
should.
to be our mindset, all right?
Yeah.
Not who we're going to hook up with and who we're going to compete, who we're going to. No, we need to unify as Africans in the tradition of our Pan African leaders, rallying around the Congo, rallying around all Africans who put first and foremost on the agenda control of our own affairs, control of our own wealth, control of our own land, right? As the folks, the brothers and sisters are in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are attempting to do today. So when we talk about the Congo and the mines, yes, you have the kids in the mines, the child labor, the women in the mines, because the people are living in extreme poverty. They're trying to survive.
Yes.
That's what they're trying to do. That's why they're in the mines. And we're working with some attorneys who have sued the major tech companies, 5 tech companies, Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Dell. And the DC courts just ruled last Tuesday, actually, on the side of the corporations, which is no surprise.
Wow.
The ruling came down on last Tuesday, and we have to redouble our efforts. But we're clear that's just a part of the battle. Even if we were to get everything and win all of the cases, the central question comes back to who's controlling Congo's wealth, for whose
Right.
benefit. Is it the Congolese? Is it Africans, for Africa's benefit? And that's the centrality of our struggle. That's why when you talk about what people can do, we direct them to our frontline partners on the ground who are battling for that very, in that very pursuit that I just shared with you, to control the land, to control the wealth, to control the affairs of the Congo. So that's the key. If you don't take anything else away from what we're
Yeah.
doing, know that the battle is on.
The battle is
Right,
on.
it's been on
Right.
for a free Congo, which is fundamental and central to a free Africa. That's if we were to believe what Nkrumah was saying, or
That's right.
Fanon, or Touré, or Modibo Keita. That's if we were, or Malcolm.
Right.
That's
Right.
if we were to believe what they shared with us. And we do it, Friends of the Congo. That's why we're following in that tradition.
That's man, that's awesome. Again, go support Friends of the Congo. Go support Friends of the Congo. And this leads me to my next question, man. When we
Mhm.
look at what's going on and taking place, like you said, in the mines, our brothers and sisters, women and children are basically mining because they have to be sustained. They have to
Right,
have
to
food. They
survive.
have to go and do the things necessary to make it to the next day. And we know these conditions are horrible, but my cousin Will, shout out to my cousin Will in Chicago. He's a alderman there, been doing some great work in the city for years with acts of love and different things. He went to Kenya about 14 years ago, and
Hmm.
he told me, man, he said, man, the Chinese are building and taking over Kenya like you would never believe. And this was
Hmm.
before people really started to see what they were doing, especially those that weren't in the know. And I was like,
Right.
seriously? He's like, yeah, man. Like this was literally 15, 16 years ago. He was telling me this
Hmm.
information. And then my wife, who's from Liberia, her relatives are telling us the Chinese are buying up everything in Liberia. And then when
Mhm.
you talk about what's going on in the Congo, and we know about the BRICS, when we talk about Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa,
Mm.
people is gets a little intimidating when you talk about the BRICS and South, especially Americans. Are
Mm.
we are we looking at Chinese as potentially, or are they already this? Are we looking at them as the 21st century colonizer when we talk about the mother continent with the way that they're aggressively buying up a lot of land, aggressively
Mhm.
building infrastructure over there as we speak right now? Is that a
Mhm.
fair statement, or am I off base a little bit?
Well, let me say this. Let's say that that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chinese are 21st century colonizers, right? Uh, Irrespective of what the national interests that the Chinese are pursuing, what are our interests? What are
Right,
we pursuing, right? Whether Chinese are colonizers or not, we still have to organize a unified continent.
right.
We still have to uh, prioritize Africa. I mean, the Chinese are not forcing 50 something Africans to come to China every 2 years, you know, African leaders.
Mm-hmm.
The Russians are not forcing these African leaders to come to Russia.
Right.
The Turks are not forcing these African leaders to come to Turkey, right? The Indians are not forcing these African leaders to come to India. Right? Even the United States, with the U.S. Africa Summit, are not forcing these African leaders. So we have to put our energies, our focus, our mobilization, particularly youth as a continent of teenagers, around unifying the African continent. Our forefathers and foremothers laid out the blueprint for us
Mm-hmm.
so that, uh, I mean, Gabon or Equatorial Guinea with less than 2 million population, they can't compete with China. They can't, not
Mm-hmm.
at any level, right?
Right.
You compete with China and you compete with the U.S. and so-called great powers by unifying the continent.
Right.
Now there's some advances that are being made in that direction with the
Right.
Africa continental free trade area,
Right.
right? The
Now,
conservative
brother
forces,
Maurice, not to cut
yes,
your knowledge, not to cut your
yes,
knowledge, but I have to play devil's advocate here because I hear people
sure.
say this all the time. Brother
Hmm.
Maurice, that sounds so great. That sounds wonderful. But a lot of our brothers and sisters on the continent, especially those in powerful positions, whether they're presidents or prime ministers or what have you, a lot of these brothers and sisters are compromised. A lot of these brothers and sisters are just flat out sellouts. How can we unify the continent when we have so many people who have a lot of times been handpicked and put in place by these same powers that have kept their feet on our neck for so many years?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The reason why they're in in power in those positions is because of what we talked about earlier. There's this film that's out that's narrated by Lauren Hill. I think it's called On Violence or something like that.
Oh, I haven't seen
Yeah.
that. It's a
That draw.
documentary.
Yeah, it's a documentary
Okay,
that draws from France Fanon, narrated by Lauren Hill.
okay,
And there's been an assault on our leaders, overthrows, assassinations. We talked about that.
right,
Lumumba was assassinated, and Nkrumah was overthrown.
right,
So these leaders were installed. What we see today is not what the best of what we've produced, but
right.
what we do see, brother, at the same time, is like a Blaise Compaore in Burkina Faso, who worked in cahoots with the French to assassinate, our brother Thomas Sankara. It took 20 something years, 27 years or so, but he was overthrown by the youth, by les citoyens, who
Hmm.
mobilized
Right,
with the women. All right. Those movements that you see, I mean, how can I say? You really have to get to see the movements that are happening among the youth
right,
in
right.
in Africa. Ballet Citoyen in Burkina Faso, Yaoundé Mar in Senegal, Urgence Panafricaniste throughout West Africa. There's just like so much dynamism. Folks look at these coups that is so-called coups that are taking place in West Africa. But you know what? Before even the military came in, the people were rising up, and the military is responding to the needs and the demands of the people. United
Right.
Nations did a study. They studied about 5,000, surveyed about 5,000, uh, people across West Africa to get an understanding of what they're thinking and why they're supporting these coups. And the people want to control their own resources. They want to get jobs. They
That's
want to
right.
be secure from the jihadists. So there is a movement from the bottom up. Though what we see in Niger, what we see in Mali, what we see in Burkina Faso is a reflection of the aspirations of the people. So we know that as the people continue to organize, they're going to get rid of these leaders. They
Yeah.
Abba, with France. France
Right.
don't know where to turn in West Africa now because the people have mobilized and organized against the French, against the French currency that's got the 14 or so West African or Francophone African countries in a bind. So there's a tremendous amount of organizing, a tremendous amount of popular education, a tremendous amount of mobilization, and it's all being done in a Pan African framework. So that's what I would say to those people. Just go and visit those countries, talk to the youth in those countries, and you'll see the direction that we're heading in. We're not there yet. We have
Mm-hmm.
these sellouts. I'm sure many of you, our listening audience, saw when the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, went to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
He said, why are we coming to Russia? Why do we come here begging when we have, what we have on the continent? So it's that spirit
Yeah.
that we see represented and reflected by Ibrahim Traore. That's among the African youth, whether they're
Yeah.
in the Congo, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, what have you. So we're hitching, our energies, our focus, our strategies, our resources to those youth, to that youth
Yes.
movement that we see
Yes.
burgeoning on the continent. We're not going to say, well, the Chinese are controlling this, and uh, the sellouts are in control. Well, let's organize and get rid of them.
Got you. Got you. And I love that. And again, anybody that knows me know, man, I love the youth. I left corporate America to work with youth in the inner city,
Hmm.
because I get a sense of being. They keep you young. And I hear so many people talk so negatively about the youth with some of the things that we see here in the States. But I never hear people really focus on those youth that are politically savvy, those that are on task with bringing awareness to these different types of things that's taking place. And again,
Hey, and brother, we saw that in Ferguson.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
people will sleep on
absolutely.
Ferguson. I don't want to get into the whole Black Lives Matter in
No,
Ferguson,
no,
but we saw that same spirit
right.
in Ferguson,
Yeah.
right? Folks swooped in and put a
We can
label
be
on
we
it,
can we can
and
be
then
honest.
made
The
people
youth,
think that the label that they put on it was actually
yes,
the movement, right? But
that
it
was
was
the
actually
youth.
the folks on the ground. So what do we say? So we're like working with the youth in Congo. We said, hey, listen, you need to come and see what these folks are doing in Ferguson. So we brought the
Yeah,
Congolese youth over here, connect with the youth in Ferguson, because it's not just on the continent or just here. We have to connect those progressive forces. We have to put these young people together and see that their domain is the world. It's
right.
not just Ferguson, it's not just Kinshasa,
That's
but
right.
listen, we need to connect those
Right.
energies. We're facing the same challenge where we're trying to control our own affairs. I mean, here in the U.S., we don't control our own. I don't have any hair, but we don't control our own hair.
Right.
In the
Right.
sense that
Right.
we're not the primary beneficiaries of what the products that go into our hair, the women's
That's
hair,
right. That's
or
right.
our own talent. The music we produce, the culture we produce, right? So
We
the
we make the
same
crumbs while they get the lion's share.
where they get the lion's share. So we have to organize together to control our own affairs, as Malcolm said, whether it's in Mississippi or in the Congo.
Right. And just to go back to what you said about Ferguson, again, that was clearly led by the youth and the powers that be, in my opinion, sent in those Black Lives Matter people and took over the movement, hijacked it. And you see what that turned out to be. I never supported them from the beginning because I knew
But
what they
I
were.
mean, but you have to check it out though. It's not. It wasn't just a question of swooping in and controlling it, but people were jailed. people were assassinated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Our
yeah,
brother Darren Seals, I think he's not with us. He's burnt
yeah.
up in the car. So
Yep.
there are those people, young folks who are at the forefront. People don't know a good number of them were jailed and
What they
others
went through. Yeah.
assassinated.
Right.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. The powers that be took the attention away from that and they made it
Yeah.
into something that it really wasn't. And one thing that me and you were talking off air before we started recording, I wanted to share this. And people will be I'll be keeping people abreast of what's going on. My son's school, Lincoln Heights High School, has a diaspora program where they have a program every year, the first end of February, beginning of March, where they celebrate all of the different cultures and the different countries of young people that go to the school. You're talking about countries in West Africa, Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria. You have people, from Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, so on and so forth, Nepal, different
Mm,
places. It's a beautiful program, and my
mhm.
son made us a documentary, a short film about the program. I'll send it to you when we go off air to check it out.
Okay.
But he was also supposed to speak at the program. He had got approved for his speech. He shared the speech with the person running the program a month ago.
Mm,
Well, the day before the presentation, they came to him, the principal and the lady running the program, saying, "Hey, Miller, we like your speech. However, it's some things we want to alter, and we want to know if you would still be willing to do the speech if we alter it." So he said, "What do you mean?" So they took his speech, alter it, took some things out. He's just turned 18 years old, young man, very,
mm,
very, very solid, knowledgeable young brother. And he's talking about what's going on in Palestine with Israel, and talking about Gaza and the things of that nature. And they basically wanted to rewrite his speech. And he said, "Listen, if I can't give my speech the way I wrote it, I don't want to give it. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
you're not going to censor me." So
mhm,
I told him, I said, "Son, I stand behind you, and I support your stance." So
mhm.
he didn't give his speech. The program was a success, and even some kids brought out a Free Palestine flag at the end of the program that wasn't supposed to bring it out. I thought it was dope. I loved it because it showed
Uh-huh.
that they supported their brother, even though he couldn't give his speech. They still was able to get that message across. Fast
Right.
forward, I told my son, I said, "Listen, we're gonna go to the school board. We're gonna talk to the school board and get our grievances heard, and then we'll move from there." And that was just tonight before we came on. Went to the school
Mm,
board. They had a special session, and I sit on the school board myself and my friend Professor Cash, who connected me with you. We sit on the school board together. Now we
mhm.
have meetings, and the meetings are always open to the public. So people that live in the community, have children in the school, they always can get up and get 3 to 5 minutes to make a public comment. Well, this was a special meeting, so they still allowed us to make a comment, but they said my son, to let him make a comment, and then when it was my turn and Professor Cash to speak, they said, "Well, this is a special meeting. If you guys want to come back next month and say what you need to say, you can say it." So
Wow.
let's
Wow.
just say we left the meeting more upset than
Before you
when we
went
came
in.
in. So
Yeah.
just letting you know, I say all that to say, when you talk about the youth, like this kid was fired up before that, and now he's even more fired up now. He's organizing his classmates. He's organizing people now to get the word out that these people are trying to silence them and not allow them to share the information that they have. And he's like, "Listen, a lot of these things that are taking place affect our generation. Eventually, we're going to be
Yes.
the leaders, right? So we need to be at the forefront of having these conversations so we can be ready when the baton is passed to us." So when you started talking about the youth, man, it does my heart joy to know that our young brothers and sisters in the Congo and abroad, and all over the world, are really doing the work. We don't do enough shining the light on them, because we show when
Absolutely.
they do something negative, but we don't shine a light on them when they do positive things. So it made my heart smile when you said that. And much love to those young brothers and sisters in the Congo fighting a good fight, because again, Whitney Houston said that the children are our future, and I really believe that. And I feel like these children
Absolutely.
are different, man. They're not going for some of the things that
No,
are
no.
messed
This
up stuff.
Gen
Even we
Z
went to.
and millennial generation, man, you can't help but be proud of them that
Yeah.
they're really shattering so many myths and breaking down so many barriers in connecting struggles in a global south and really unveiling the lack of morality that
Yes.
exists in the
That's what it
global
is,
elite today,
Maurice. Lack
right?
of morality. That's right.
You know, they're really tearing that down, and it's really good to see even like a country like South Africa, to shine and be the more voice
Yeah,
of the world, like calling what
yeah,
it is. The
that's right.
genocide that's happening in Gaza. It's kind of interesting with South Africa. We often say they're confronting imperialism in the courts with the International Court of Justice and bringing charges of genocide against Israel. And by the same token, they're sending their soldiers to the Congo on the battlefield to confront another U.S. ally in Rwanda in eastern Congo. So they're
Mm,
doing battle on the battlefield and in the courts and
hmm.
confronting
On two
the
fronts.
proxies of the United States. And
Wow.
these young people are really, the voice
Yes.
of this movement
Yeah,
to break down these false profits that have been put in front of us
that's right.
and really expose the system for what it is,
That's right.
immoral, corrupt, that's been trying to shroud itself through its corporate media as the moral voice of the world. There's something that the United States often say. They say the leaders of the free world.
Man,
That's what they often say. They're the leaders of the
that's
free
that's
world.
that's
So
laughable. That is
these
so laughable.
young people are exposing that they're
Yes,
not the leader. They're leaders of the settler colonialists. They're the leaders of the genocidaires.
right.
Uh, they're the leaders of those who are trying to keep the people down,
Absolutely.
especially black and brown people throughout the globe. So
Absolutely.
so the
As
young
we
people, big up to them, big up to the young
big up
folks.
to all the young people, man. Big up. I love
Yeah.
y'all and keep fighting a good fight. Brothers like myself and Maurice gonna have your back and go support you all the way because again, you guys are truly the future and whatever knowledge and wisdom we have to pass along to you, we're gonna do that to make sure that
Without doubt.
at the end of the
Without doubt.
day, we will win. Maurice, as we get ready to close, man, I don't want to steal too much more of your time, man.
Mhm.
Again, go to Friends of the Congo, support Brother Maurice and the good work that they're doing on the ground in the Congo. When you talk about those 7 million displaced brothers and
Mm,
sisters, that really stuck out. I knew it was in the millions. I didn't realize it was that high. When you talk about
yeah.
those brothers and sisters that are displaced in other places, other countries, other continents, man, talk about um, what we can do to kind of assist and help them, whether it be financially, whether it be, giving them platforms to voice what happened to them and things that can be, beneficial to helping them return home if that's their end goal. Talk about those
Yeah.
7 millions displaced and what
Yeah.
that looks
Yeah.
like.
All of that support financially, providing
Yes,
platform. We're working with journalists in the east of the country. So if you can have them on to talk about what's happening there and give updates, that would be great.
absolutely.
Putting pressure on the U.S. government. If you go to freecongo.org, we have a petition there, a letter writing campaign to members of Congress, telling them you don't want your tax dollars to be fueling conflict and displacement in the Congo. So yeah, the donations help, of course, and supporting folks on the front lines. Providing a platform like the journalists. I would love to have some of the Congolese journalists on with you. Putting
Yeah,
pressure on the U.S. government and letting them know you want your tax dollars to fuel conflict and displacement in the Congo. So those are all concrete things that people can do when they go to freecongo.org.
absolutely, absolutely. And when you
Mm.
look at a lot of our brothers and sisters that are displaced, what is a area that a lot of them are displaced? Some of the
I-
places around
In the east of the
in
Congo,
the
where the
east.
conflict is, yeah, near bordering Rwanda and Uganda,
Okay,
that's
okay,
where a lot of them are. A lot of them are
man.
in that area.
Man, again, go to Friends of the Congo, help out, man. Any amount helps. It's
Yeah,
important, and it's sad to say, but we support any and everything. We have to support our own. We have to make sure
absolutely,
that we
absolutely.
are utilizing the resources and the God given, uh, 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 things that we have to help those brothers and sisters that are in dire need. So please support. I'm gonna let you go on this one, man. Any closing remarks or any statements that you want to make before we close out, and then I have
Yeah,
one last quick fun
just
question.
to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to speak to folks in your network. We have to continue to spread the word. We have to get the information out there. So really appreciate that. And just want to say this in parting that those Congolese on the front lines, the young folks, indigenous leaders, uh, village folks, uh, they believe and know that they're going to claim victory, right?
Mm,
They believe and know that they're going to claim victory. And without supporting them, with solidarity from the outside, it strengthens their resolve to know
mm,
that they're not alone.
that's
Because you
right.
see, if you follow the show, we've laid out the forces that are arrayed against the Congolese people, neighboring countries, Rwanda and Uganda, all right? Foreign governments, United States, France, United Kingdom, right? Multilateral institutions, World Bank, IMF, International Finance Corporation, all right? Uh, Multinational corporations, from the mining companies, Glencore, Ivanhoe, right up to the tech companies, Apple, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, right? And then their own elites, right? The Congolese elite
Yeah,
that live on that make $20,000 a month, while the 70 million make less than $2 a day.
215.
So these forces are against the Congolese people. So it is you and me, right? The average person, people around the globe, that can come to the side of the Congolese in order to be in solidarity with them as all these forces are arrayed against them. We can be the difference maker. And Lumumba recognized this in his last letter to his wife
Mm,
when before he was assassinated. There's a passage in that letter. He said, he was speaking to Congolese people, he said, uh, Africa, Asia, free and liberated people from every corner of the world will always be found on the side of the Congolese people. So that's the appeal that we make to you in parting, to be found on the side of the Congolese people, not only because of the forces that are arrayed against them, but we know victory for Congo is equal to victory for Africa. Victory for Africa is equal to victory for the African world. You know, when Che Guevara went to the Congo in 1965, he said this was the front line of the battles against colonialism. And he said that Congo's problem is a worldwide problem.
that's right. He
He
sure
said to the
did.
extent that Congo is successful is the same extent that Africa is going to be successful. To the extent that Congo isn't successful is the same extent that Africa isn't going to be successful.
Yeah,
So we have it in our hands to be by the side of the Congolese people in the spirit of Che, in the spirit of Lumumba, and certainly in the spirit of Frantz Fanon, who said
yeah.
the fate of all of us is at stake in the Congo.
That's right. And before I close again, thank you, Brother Maurice, for your time. Thank you for your information and for the knowledge that you imparted on us tonight. Again, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Send this information out to people who want to help. Again, as friends of the Congo. And I'll say this in closing, man. And I'm glad you brought up our brother, the mighty Che Guevara, the
Mm.
brother who was an ally. And that's why I love Che so much, man. A brother who was a doctor, somewhat privileged, had the opportunity to do any and everything in the world he wanted to do besides trying to fight for liberation of people around the world, not just in Argentina where he was from, or not just in Cuba, but and not just in Africa, any and everywhere. And
Right.
I got back. I went to Cuba early this year and had an
Mm.
opportunity to talk to some people in the Cuban community and share stories and things that they shared with me about that brother and the work that he did and how his spirit is still alive in that country today, even with a lot of the hardships that they face. You know,
Mhm.
if you go
Yeah,
to Cuba,
that insane blockade.
absolutely,
Haba with the blockade. Yeah.
absolutely. I tell people if you go to Cuba and just look around, you would think that Che was the president. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm.
there are murals of him all over in the nice neighborhoods in the hood, like everywhere, man. That brother is beloved in that country. So I love the fact that you mentioned him and the work that he was able to do in the Congo. Is
Absolutely.
wonderful. And again, go to Friends of the Congo. Brother Maurice, I appreciate your time. Again, thank you. And y'all come back and join us next week for another conversation here on Church After Hours.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.